basket will count. And he was fouled. Georgia doing a job on the offensive boards. That shot by Crosby deflected. Here comes Kemba.
A single question hung over the Delta Center on June 14th, 1998. Could Michael Jordan overcome the exhaustion of a grueling season to defeat the Utah Jazz one last time? Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls entered this game knowing their roster faced an immediate breakup regardless of the outcome. Tension spiked when Scottie Pippen clutched his lower back after an early dunk and headed to the locker room for emergency medical attention. This injury stripped the roster of its primary defensive anchor and secondary playmaker. Michael Jordan had to manage the highest offensive usage of his career in a finals closeout game because of this physical breakdown. The burden of the entire Chicago offense shifted onto a single pair of shoulders, while Scottie Pippen struggled to remain on the floor. Michael Jordan responded to the crisis by attacking the rim and the mid-range repeatedly to prevent the scoring margin from widening. Scottie Pippen eventually returned from the locker room but moved with visible stiffness. The medical reality meant Michael Jordan had to orchestrate every possession against a younger Utah rotation. Phil Jackson kept Michael Jordan on the floor for nearly the entire contest to prevent the game from slipping away. This tactical necessity transformed the game into a singular endurance test for the veteran star. Karl Malone and his teammates could cheat toward the ball because Scottie Pippen could no longer provide a healthy secondary scoring threat. This pressure forced Michael Jordan to find ways through double teams and heavy physical contact in the paint. Dick Bavetta, Hugh Hollins, and Danny Crawford officiated a contest defined by heavy contact and a grinding pace. The first half at the Delta Center saw athletes struggle to find offensive rhythm as defenders crowded the paint. Michael Jordan and the Chicago roster scored 22 points in the first quarter and 23 in the second.
No one gives any defensive support.
A little bit. Here's Jordan down the lane.
Oh, brother.
43 points for Jordan. Been inserted in your screen. Jordan.
Karl Malone and the Utah Jazz countered with 25 and 24 points. These narrow margins resulted from physical defensive schemes that limited transition opportunities. Every basket required significant effort from both rosters. This environment increased the pressure on the officiating crew as every whistle carried championship weight. The lack of easy scoring meant that any deviation from the rules could have significant consequences for either side. Dick Bavetta and his colleagues faced scrutiny after a controversial ruling on a Howard Eisley three-pointer. Howard Eisley released a shot that appeared to leave his hand before the shot clock expired, but the officials disallowed the basket. This decision wiped 3 points off the scoreboard for the Utah Jazz. The disallowed points fundamentally altered the scoring margin and the tactical pressure on the court. This call stands as a critical moment that impacted the momentum heading into the final stages of the game. The loss of those 3 points forced Karl Malone and his teammates to work harder for a cushion in a game where points were rare. This ruling changed how Phil Jackson and the Bulls approached their defensive rotations later in the contest. Defensive intensity peaked during the third quarter as both teams combined for only 33 points. Michael Jordan and his teammates managed 16 points while Karl Malone and the Utah Jazz scored 17. These figures illustrate the grueling nature of the matchup on June 14, 1998. The officiating allowed a level of contact that forced athletes to battle for every inch of floor space at the Delta Center.
Carolina has the lead. So quite a year for the Bulldogs' basketball fortunes.
North Carolina appears to try to push the ball inside.
Michael Jordan.
This physical style favoured the interior defence of the Jazz and limited the effectiveness of the Chicago Triangle offense. The narrow margin heading into the final frame ensured that a single possession would decide the 1998 NBA championship. Fatigue became a factor as the officials continued to let the players determine the outcome through physical play.
Jordan the corner. That breaks the tension for the Tar Heels. James Madison, North Carolina with its only lead so far, 4-2, and here goes Jordan.
John Stockton received the ball beyond the arc as the clock wound down in Salt Lake City. The veteran point guard found space and released a three-pointer that dropped through the net with 41.9 seconds left in the fourth quarter. This shot gave the Utah Jazz an 86-83 lead, creating a burst of noise from the home crowd at the Delta Center. This specific possession shifted the pressure entirely onto Michael Jordan and his teammates, who had struggled to maintain an offensive rhythm in the final minutes. The successful jumper by Stockton forced the Chicago players to find an immediate scoring solution to avoid a seventh game in the 1998 NBA championship. The three-point deficit created a massive tactical challenge for the visitors. Michael Jordan faced a 90% statistical probability of losing the game and playing a seventh contest after that basket. The Chicago starters operated without a margin for error as they sought to secure the Larry O'Brien Trophy in a hostile environment. Utah defenders looked to maintain this advantage through one final defensive stand against a weary opponent. That scoring gap altered the atmosphere in the arena, making a Jazz victory appear statistically certain to the spectators in attendance. Michael Jordan received the inbound pass and drove the length of the court without calling a timeout. He bypassed the Utah perimeter defense to finish a layup, reducing the lead to a 1-point deficit.
Scoop shot two-hander, but I mean, Jordan goes by Bobby Hansen, and he puts it up so quickly, and he goes over the ball.
Now the clock is running down. 3. Jordan for 3.
This scoring drive consumed only seconds of clock time at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City. Jordan recognized the necessity of a high percentage basket to keep the contest within reach after the previous Jazz three-pointer. This rapid response maintained the pressure on the home team, forcing them to execute their offense with a narrow lead in the final minute of the 1998 NBA championship. The decision to attack the rim immediately rather than calling a timeout prevented the Utah Jazz from organizing their half-court defense. Michael Jordan emphasized speed to ensure his team would have another possession, regardless of the outcome on the other end of the floor. This approach kept the momentum from shifting entirely to the home crowd. It also forced the Jazz into a high-stakes possession where a single mistake would forfeit their lead. Jordan's choice to score quickly preserved enough time for one final defensive sequence. Karl Malone received the ball in the post on the following possession while being guarded by a Bulls defender. Michael Jordan moved away from his assigned man on the perimeter to double-team Malone from the blind side. Jordan reached in and swiped the ball away as Malone turned toward the basket to begin his move. This defensive theft was the most significant turnover of the game because it provided Chicago with the ball and the opportunity to take the lead. Jordan secured the live ball and immediately moved toward the offensive end. Jordan made a tactical choice to abandon his defensive assignment to double-team the post. This gamble succeeded because Karl Malone did not anticipate help coming from the baseline side, while he focused on his primary defender. Jordan took advantage of the post-entry pass to catch the Jazz offense in a moment of vulnerability. This turnover allowed the Chicago Bulls to control their own destiny in the closing seconds of the 1998 NBA championship without needing to stop the clock with a foul. Jordan placed the outcome of the series in his own hands by recovering the ball.
In trouble, throw it away, and here's Jordan. Oh, Michael Jordan!
13 points now. Michael Jordan inside. So it's the
Michael Jordan controlled the ball as he moved into the front court at the Delta Center on June 14, 1998. The Chicago Bulls trailed by 1 point, following the previous defensive sequence. Jordan bypassed the option to call a timeout and engaged Brian Russell at the top of the key. He initiated a drive toward the right side of the lane before planting his right foot and pulling the ball back across his body. Brian Russell lost his footing and stumbled forward as Jordan regained his balance. Jordan jumped and released a jump shot that entered the net with 5.2 seconds remaining on the clock. This successful basket marked the only lead change to occur within the final minute of the game.
Move Bradley, great defense to get back. Jordan goes up, hits it, and is fouled by Bradley.
The shot, as you see, Dudley was moved by Michael Jordan. He just goes up and just puts a hand up. And
Space for the final shot came from the sudden pullback action that exploited the defender's weight. The crossover forced Brian Russell to overcommit to a baseline retreat, leaving Jordan with room to set his feet. This basket provided the Chicago Bulls with an 87-86 lead. Utah attempted to respond on their final possession with a three-point shot from John Stockton. The ball bounced off the front of the rim as the game clock reached 0 and the final buzzer sounded. Chicago secured the 1998 NBA championship and the Larry O'Brien Trophy with this result. Michael Jordan earned a record 6th NBA Finals MVP award following the victory. This broadcast recorded an 18.7 Nielsen television rating, the highest in the history of the league. The victory at the Delta Center on June 14, 1998, marked the final competitive appearance for Michael Jordan in a Chicago Bulls jersey. This outcome concluded a season defined by internal organizational tension regarding the future of the roster. Management officials had previously indicated that the 1997-1998 campaign would be the final year for the championship core, regardless of the result.
In the field, his fourth foul. The steal, and it's showtime. Comes out, and he's...
Most dynasties in professional sports conclude with a visible decline in performance or a playoff defeat. The Chicago Bulls avoided that trajectory by ending their run at the exact moment they secured their 6th title of the decade. This specific timing ensured the legacy of the group remained tied to a winning result, rather than the eventual struggles of an aging roster.
There's another inside pass picked up by Bradley. Look out for Jordan. Ran away from his dribble and recovers it to score.
That's an example of his athletic ability. He ran right past the basketball.
Coach Phil Jackson and star forward Scottie Pippen departed the franchise shortly after the celebrations in Salt Lake City concluded. The decision to dismantle the championship rotation effectively turned the winning basket into a permanent exit from the sport for the protagonist of the era. This finality transformed the series into a cultural milestone that extended beyond the box score. Referees Dick Bavetta, Hugh Hollins, and Danny Crawford oversaw a game that remains the highest rated in the history of the league. Michael Jordan never returned to play for the city of Chicago, leaving his final jump shot as the concluding action of his tenure. That moment remains a unique historical pivot where a dominant force exited the stage while still occupying the position of the best player in the world.